Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. It is absolutely a pleasure for me to bring another episode to you. And we are actually celebrating tonight also our third year of doing this content. And this episode is my 113th episode tonight. So there's also great joy in knowing that we've provided this content since 2021 now, and we're looking forward to continuing to provide the very best content we can find. Tonight, I have a special guest. This gentleman that we're going to talk to tonight is a person that I have known and knows me very well. We pledged the fraternity at the same time, and certainly I'm looking forward to talking to him about the work that he's done excellently for so many years. My guest tonight is Brian Kennedy. Brian Kennedy has worked at Lexis Nexis, a legal software and publishing company, for over 31 years in several capacities, including senior legal analyst, editorial manager, and director of editorial. And over the past 16 years, Brian has worked as director of government relations and government content for Lexis Nexis. In this position, Brian develops and preserves strategic partnerships with state government officials from the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Brian is responsible for establishing and maintaining primary law publishing contracts and acquiring legal data for the massive Lexis Nexis database. Brian is also a founding member of the Raleigh African Ancestry Network, which is an employee resource group at Lexis Nexis. Brian and his wife, Kimberly, are the proud parents of 3 wonderful children. It is incredibly rewarding that they have grown up to be such great people. Brian and his wife are also grandparents to 2 of the sweetest kids who keep them hopping. And at this time, I'd like to present to the Wright Experience my LB number 1, Brian Kennedy. Welcome to the Wright Experience.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. I'm going to struggle to call you Dr. Wright through this whole thing because I knew you way before you were a doctor.
Hey, I'm always going to be William, so you're fine. You're fine.
First of all, thank you for inviting me here. I am not only your friend, but I'm a fan of the show. I've watched several. I haven't watched all 113, but I've watched a good amount, and I feel privileged to be asked to participate.
Absolutely, and as I want to approach my 3rd anniversary, certainly wanted to give you the opportunity to be here and help me celebrate and so forth. We certainly have been through some other things together including pledging the fraternity. So certainly wanted to have you here for this momentous occasion. So, Brother Kennedy, Mr. Kennedy, Dr. Kennedy. As we are approaching, let's talk a little bit about this work that you've done and the specifics of the work that you have done in years, because, you're a trained lawyer, you went to school, and I remember those days when you were hopping across the campus of North Carolina Central to go to law school, and you got your degree and the bar and all of that. And then the next thing I know, you were working with a legal publishing company. So talk to us a little bit about that work and what intrigued you to do it and that whole process.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's an alternative legal career, and it combines the law and business. And one of the reasons, after when I was in law school, I worked at a law firm all 3 years during law school. And so I got a taste of the traditional legal practice, and it included criminal and civil law, and it was all consuming. It was very adversarial, and it didn't. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the competition of it, but it didn't allow me to collaborate a lot. In the collaboration that I wanted. So what I did is after graduation, I worked at the law firm for an additional year, and then I sought alternative legal legal field, and Lexis Legal Publishing was one of them. There's only a few major legal publishers in the nation, and I was fortunate enough to be able to apply and get a job at this one at LexisNexis.
Mhm. And so the day-to-day work at LexisNexis for our audience, I can look on my shelf at work and look at our general statute books, particularly when I was in North Carolina. And in that book, it shows LexisNexis, and it talks about all of the general statutes that apply to schools in North Carolina. But for our viewers that are not quite familiar, when you talk about legal publishing, what kinds of things are you publishing?
So we publish the laws that are generated by the state legislators. We also publish opinions that come from the courts, and we publish regulations, rules and regulations that come from the executive branch agencies. So what happens is, your legislatures that you vote for, they go into session and they create laws, and most people think that those once they create the laws, it's clear on how it should be applied, but it's not the case. There's a codification process that has to take place, and my company codifies those laws and publishes those into books. And we also that's how I started, but we've also expanded to create legal tools for lawyers. So not only do you have the content, but you have the process built into the content that lawyers can use. Um, so, in a nutshell, without getting too deep into it and too boring, that's what we do. We collaborate with state legislators to codify the laws that are created by them.
So that requires a great deal of interaction.
Yes.
Certainly, you're in and out of spaces all the time, having to interact with and evaluate laws. Or I guess you're not really evaluating them, but you're making them come to fruition. So, who are some of the kinds of people or categories of people, I guess, be the best way to say it, that you interact with in your work?
Yeah, our editorial team at LexisNexis, they interact directly with legislative staff. So
Okay.
the legislative staff are the ones that draft. So a legislator will come and say, "I need a bill to put a stoplight at this intersection,"
Okay.
and then the legislative staff will draft the actual bill, and then the legislator will present it and get it passed and signed by the governor, and then it'll come to us and the legislative staff to work in conjunction to codify it. Sometimes it needs to be tweaked here and there to make sense, and sometimes it conflicts with other legislation, and we resolve those conflicts, and that's what the editorial staff does. What I do, I used to work in editorial. Now I work in government relations and content acquisition. And what I do now is I work with the legislators and also legislative staff in order to create these publishing relationships. So I draft contracts and I draft publishing relationships, and I came up with pricing for us to do this kind of work for the government. So I will work specifically with, for instance, in North Carolina, I work specifically with the North Carolina Code Revisor and also the Code Commission, which comprises of statutory legislators and that type of thing, in order to come up with an agreement and understanding on how we're going to do this work, how much we're going to charge them for it, and what have you. And I maintain those relationships.
So getting to the point where that work is done sounds like it requires a great deal of, I guess, building and maintaining relationships. And you've been at this work, I think I read 31 years. So
Yes.
um, talk to us about the importance of that, building and maintaining those relationships that you use to work.
I think that's my favorite. The favorite part of my job is building the relationship. It's and a lot of people approach it like, okay, we're going to try to get as much as we can out of this. We're going to try to get as much money for the least amount of work. And what I try to do is I try to understand what the needs are of the governments that we're working with, what will make them happy, and see what I can do in order to make sure that we can provide to them what they want and also make money on top of that. And it's interesting. I'm responsible for the East Coast, so I'm responsible for Boston and New England, all the way down to the South, Florida, South Carolina, and Virgin Islands. And the interesting part for me is understanding that different people in different regions need different things.
Mm-hmm.
And and also so there's no cookie cutter, there's no one size fits all as far as dealing with people. Some people want to talk about the family, some people are strictly business, and I find it very interesting to find out what makes people tick, what makes them happy, what annoys them, and just try to, not in a sneaky way, but try to figure out how can I relate to them on their level. And it's almost like code switching, code switching from state to state, from region to region. We
Okay.
all code we code switch from when you and I are on the golf course versus when we're in our professional capacities.
You're
So it's
kidding.
something similar to that. And I won't go into detail, but it's something similar to that where you just have to figure out what makes people comfortable, what turns them on, what turns them off as far as your behavior and how you approach it and what they need, and then figure out how to get them what they need. And oftentimes with our states, they need someone to help them codify their stuff. They need someone to help them do it in a way that doesn't cost them that much money, and then figure out how we can do that, and also make sure that the business gets taken care of as well. So that's the challenge that I have almost every day, trying to balance that and nurture these relationships in order to make sure that everybody's happy. And I am fortunate enough to be in a position or have a career where I can do that. Most people are strictly like, you just got to do, you got to stay within this lane. You just have to do this, and there's no looking out for the other person. There's no looking, doing this or that. You just have to look at our bottom line and make that money and go forward. I'm fortunate enough, and I have the freedom to be able to figure out how I can help both sides and also make money for our company.
And you're really talking about having flexibility to be able to
Yeah.
assess and then work through the situation that's best for your clients, which, I think the world has kind of caught up or is catching up with that. Jobs are becoming less and less rote now. People are expecting more flexibility. And so, but you've been doing that for a while. I can remember driving to Charlottesville when you were there and talking about some of the flexibilities that you had and some of the communications that you had, which I think are so important, honestly, for those of us that are learning that we have to do that now. School district 25 years ago was probably a lot more rote than it is now, because we got to deal with competition and things of that nature, with charters and whatever else is out there. So it requires us to be flexible, kind of like you're talking about, for sure.
Yeah, and the flexibility doesn't come. You don't get that at the beginning of your career.
Speak to that for us. That's good.
Yeah,
That's a good
you
one.
have to earn the trust of your company to be able to be flexible. And I remember early in my career, there's been many times internal meetings where I've had to look at my boss in his face or her face and say, "Do you trust me? Do you trust me to do this? Then give me some leeway to do what I need to do in order to make this work." And fortunately, it's worked out for me. Now, if I go on a limb and it falls apart, then there might be some trouble. But I've been fortunate enough to be confident in myself, to convince internal folks at my job that to trust me in order to move forward and be successful. But it didn't start off that way. It took a lot of work in the early years.
How do you think? Speaking of that trust, you carry me down a really good rabbit hole. Then, speaking of that trust, how do we earn that? If you're talking to someone who's new to an organization, new to Lexis Nexis, new to school administration, new to IBM, wherever, how do you earn that trust? What do you
Yeah,
do?
first of all, you got to you have to be good at your regular job. You have
Okay.
to, so you have a job description and you know what you're supposed to do, and you have to be exceptional at it. You have to not just be average. You have to be very good at it. And
Okay.
in order to get that trust, you have to not only on top of that, you have to build on that by figuring out how you can add value beyond what's been asked of you. And I know, I mean, I have young adult kids, and you have young adult kids, and I know that the current atmosphere is you have to take care of yourself and you can't overdo it and all that kind of stuff. But in order for you to stand out, you're going to have to go above and beyond in
Uh-huh.
some realm, and not just for the sake of doing it, but go above and beyond and show your value. And then once you do that, your the trust will come. It
Mhm,
should come.
mhm, mhm. Is trust necessary in today's society?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if
Good.
without trust, I mean, you'll be macromanaged.
Yeah.
You will be, you'll have a short leash. You won't be able to shine. You won't be able to excel. You'll just be a cog in the wheel and just keeping things moving. But trust is important uh, to allow you to shine and I'm not doing it just for I didn't excel or go above and beyond just because I wanted to or just because I wanted to do something for the company. It's exciting to me. It's fun to be able to do something outside the ordinary, and it benefited me, it benefited the company, and it also benefited the states that we deal with.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So part of the work that you've done, as I was preparing for this show, and this is cause I know my line, brother. Um, you've worked diligently to try to make sure that you had a healthy, what I would call work-life balance.
Yeah,
Speak to
yeah.
that for us. Tell us why that's so important.
It is very important. I mean, going up to my career, I raised three kids. I have friends, and I know that if I had put 100% of my work of my life into my work, then all that would suffer, and eventually I would burn out. One of the reasons why I switched over to an alternative legal career is when I was working at a law firm, I was spending 16, 18, 20 hours a day sometimes, especially when cases were when we were at trial, working.
Mhm.
And it was exciting, but it wasn't sustainable. I wasn't refueling. I wasn't replenishing my body. I wasn't getting enough rest. And I was obsessed. And then when I did go to bed, I would dream about the trial. I would dream about work, and it was all encompassing. And I don't think that it's a sustainable lifestyle for me. Now, some people thrived on it, but for me, it was important to have that balance. I was, and after law school, I was just recently married. I had a young child, and I knew that it was important for me to be there for my family, and not only for them but for me to have that distinction to be able to cut off work and enjoy family. And I also had a slew of friends that I enjoyed hanging out with, playing golf with, and that type of thing. And that's important because if you don't refresh yourself, you'll burn yourself out.
Mhm, mhm. Say that one again. If you don't refresh yourself, you'll burn yourself out. Yeah,
Absolutely,
that's right.
absolutely. Now I've seen a lot of people do that. I've seen a lot of people shoot up and then burnout.
Sure. Now you talked also to us about a little bit, and we'll kind of continue on this about the importance of forming groups or networks inside work, but also outside of work. Talk to us a little bit about that, the importance of that.
Yeah, I really discovered that in law school,
Okay.
where you can't you God did not put us here alone to be alone. You have to work. You can't do everything by yourself. And so I established uh, in law school. They encouraged us to establish study groups. So I did that. And not only did I have a study group, I had different pods of group. I had a group of people that I just like really studied with. I had a group of people that, hey, it's Friday night, let's go out. And I had a group of people that were just like um, spiritual relief and consultants with me. And sometimes those groups intertwined, but it was important to have those types of groups. In my professional world, it's important to have people. It's important to have advocates for you. We call them sponsors or mentors. And the difference between a sponsor and a mentor is a mentor will show you the ropes and will help you navigate the internal workings of the corporation. A sponsor will be your advocate. So a sponsor would be the person who will say, like, someone, at a senior position saying that I think Brian will be good at working on this special project. And I was fortunate enough to have both. And I think you have to put yourself out there. And to be honest, when I was out there, I was one of the few African American at my level. So I put myself out there, and I saw a lot of people look at me like he doesn't belong there. But I just didn't care. I had enough confidence in myself to move on. But it's important to form these alliances, and sometimes you'll be in a group and you'll find out that the group ain't for you. you
Right.
know, these these people are looking out for themselves, and they got this black guy in this group because it's in vogue or something like that, or it's something cool to have. So I've been in that situation too, and I said, okay, I see what's going on here. I had to pull back, but it's important to put yourself out there and to affiliate yourself with other people, like-minded people, and help you move you forward. And then also outside of work, I mean, when you're part of my network outside of work, where you just have to be with other professionals, where you can talk about professional things in a safe space, and release and move on, so you can go back on Monday and take care of business. So it's important to have different types of groups and not try to do everything by yourself, because you'll drive yourself crazy if you keep everything internalized and you don't share, and you don't share the burden with other folks.
And some of it is good for you physically, but it's also sometimes just good mentally. We have another fraternity brother that I played golf with often, particularly uh, years ago when I was trying to finish the doctorate and all of that. And we had a pact. First three holes at 18, we could talk about work and anything that we wanted to. And then after that, work was done and you had to focus on family or whatever. It couldn't be anything related to work. And you got to have those outlets and those healthy work-life balances that create that. And so I'm thankful for you to speak to that, because I know you live, sleep, eat, and breathe it every day, and even playing with the grandchildren. I think I called one day and Zion was over there. And it was middle of the work day, but you got to do what you got to do. And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So now you're telling on me. But you're right. I mean, it's important, and
sure,
it's different from our parents, right?
absolutely, yeah,
This Our generation is like the pivoting generation, where you say, you work hard, but you also got to take care of yourself, and you
yeah,
got to take care of your family as well.
yeah,
You can't be absent. You have to do self-care. Self-care was not a term for our parents' generation. But
Yeah,
it's very
work as hard as you can and get all you can get. That's
that's
what.
right, that's right.
Yeah,
And that's only half living, in my opinion.
yeah, exactly. So let's delve into this a little bit. 35, 30, it's been longer than that now. 38 years ago, I think we both were on North Carolina Central's campus. We were, working through our different degrees. Took me longer to get mine than yours, but I got a few now on the wall.
You up
So,
there?
yeah, I got a few on the wall now. But so if you're talking to someone who is aspiring to do something similar, I'll say, to what you're doing, whether it is practicing law every day full time, or as you described, an alternative law path. What advice would you give them? What do they need to be looking for and making sure that they're ready for in that journey?
Yeah, and I guess you'd have to break it down. Someone asked me this yesterday. It was
Hmm.
interesting, and their child was 16,
Hmm.
and I guess it depends on where you are in your journey. If you're in high school, enjoy high school, work hard, and get get as much as you can. Take education seriously. I I'm not gonna tell any fibs. I didn't kick in until college. High school I did okay. I kind of coasted. College I was tested a little bit and I pushed it in a little bit more. And then law school, after that first semester, I realized, okay, I gotta kick it in. So my advice would be to kick it in a little sooner than I did.
Right.
I mean, I did okay because it came naturally to me, but I could have done a lot better if I had worked a little harder.
Mhm.
And it's important to have that work life balance, but make sure it's balanced. Make sure it's not life work, it's work life. It's equal. So you really have to push yourself, and sometimes you're gonna have to push yourself to find out, okay, I'm working too hard, I need to pull back, or I'm not working as hard as I need to, and I need to step it up. But the earlier you can figure that out, the better. And there's no harm in working hard first, getting that work hard, that hard work in first. Taking every class that you take seriously. One thing I did in undergrad, if it was like a geography class or something that wasn't political science or English related, I would, like, at the beginning, I wouldn't really put forth all my effort. Put forth all your effort in all your classes and everything that you do, because you're going to need that work ethic going into law school, believe me. Also, when you go into law school, don't fool yourself into thinking that it's going to be not that challenging, because it's going to be focused in one area and you don't have to deal with all these different things. I found out the first 2 months of law school that it was no joke. Everybody in law school, they're brilliant. Everybody's a honor student, so you're not special anymore.
Hmm.
And and you can't coast. Everybody has to work hard. And also, we touched on this, find your people, find your group. Can't do it by yourself. Find your group inside school and also outside of school. Stay grounded, and also really know that you can learn anything from anybody. You know, you can learn stuff from your professors. You can learn stuff from, you know, administrative staff. You can learn stuff from anybody, and don't take anybody for granted. A lot of times you get into a position you think you're too high to really talk to folks or really associate with folks, and that's a mistake.
Hmm. Hmm. The future. If you had a crystal ball over the next 10 years for career paths for folks, that are sitting, because I talk to students all the time and say I think I want to go into law. You know, what's that going to look like 10 years from now? We're still going to have an abundant need of trial lawyers. Do you think it's going to continue to be more diverse as time goes on? What?
It's interesting that you talk about that. Artificial intelligence has had a huge impact on the practice of law. over the past 2-3 years.
Okay.
And my company is on the forefront of doing that. Instead of back when I was in law school, first of all, you research them books and then you research on computers here and there for case law and statutes and stuff like that. The future would be you research, but you type in a search, and then artificial intelligence will go in and 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 search a vast database of all the information that's there, pull out all the research that I used to have to do by hand, and also summarize it. So the future of law is to be able to figure out the right queries to ask in order to get the right information, but then to be able to use that data and manipulate it and use it for your own purpose. Because everybody's going to be able to use artificial intelligence to come up with the same thing. So it's going to be is less research and more strategy what you do with that research. Because of playing with artificial intelligence, the playing field is leveled out a little bit as far as research is concerned, but you're going to have to be more strategic on how you apply it.
So the best lawyers moving forward then are going to have to be strategic thinkers too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't be great. I mean, being a great researcher is not going to be enough at all.
Okay.
Yep.
I bet it's going to be that way in some other fields too. That's very, very profound observation there. Appreciate
Most
that.
definitely.
So, Mr. Kennedy, is there anything else you'd like to share for our audience at this time that I've not asked you?
I think your questions were pretty good. I can reiterate, find your people.
Right.
Don't do this alone. Don't do anything alone. Find your people inside and outside, and find a diverse groups. You diversify your groups. And one thing I do want to say, and I mentioned it before, I'm honored to be asked to be a guest on this show. I'm a fan, not only because I've known you since you were a teenager, but also I'm proud to see what you have become, and it's rare that you get to see someone coming straight out of high school and grow up with them and see them develop into a leader such as you are, and proud to be able to call you my friend.
I appreciate that. Right back at you too, brother. I've always been proud of your walk and the things that you've done, and your sons and daughter, of course, are like my niece and nephews, and just appreciate that. And as you know, I don't have any blood brothers, but you are my blood brother. So
absolutely,
appreciate that very much. If you'll hold on, we'll come back and close out the show.
Okay.
As I approach the culmination of my 3rd anniversary doing this work, we're going to try to do a special episode next week. We'll try to give it a title, but basically you'll listen to me for a period of time, talk about some things that I've observed and learned over the past few years doing the work that I've done. We'll call it kind of I guess maybe a CEO special of sorts for episode 114 as we branch into our 4th year of doing this work. It has absolutely been and continues to be a pleasure to bring you this content. As you see, we're diversifying our portfolio. We want to make sure that we keep the content relevant and interesting. And I did not want to do that without having my fraternity brother, my spring '85 fraternity brother, come on and talk with us at this point. As you can see, he's done some amazing work over his career and has some great insight on how we can all get better. And when I started this show in 2021, you all heard me say, if you can go all the way back to episode 1, my whole goal was to make this show about making us all just a little bit better through the content that we hear and observe. So you can look forward to that. That'll be next Thursday here on the Wright Experience. I'll be kind of flying solo that week, and then we'll get into our 4th year of content where we will have and continue to have some amazing guests. Brian, Mr. Brother Kennedy, Just want to say thank you for agreeing to be a part of this. And there goes, there it is. And so certainly proud of the work that you have done, and thank you for the insight. You provided some amazing insight. This platform is open for you to come back at any time as you continue to matriculate through life. And please, by all means, give my regards to little Brian and Kendall and Casey and the grandchildren. Zion, and the baby is what baby? Zora. There you go. All right. And certainly to the Mrs. and all of the family, to the Wright Experience audience, thank you very much for watching, and good evening.
Good night.